Today, our special guest is none other than Mrs. Michelle Chafee.
Well, I was born in Minnesota.
Why Washington, Georgia? What made you all decide to just pack up and move here?
I was in Paris, France, in a tech incubator called Station F. And if it's any place warmer than Minnesota and within 2 hours of an international airport, and that very day he found this house. That's kind of our story. We didn't know anybody here. And then I ended up going to Rwanda several times. The Minister of Health at that time, her name was Diane Gashumba, she had heard about my technology and was interested in implementing it there in Rwanda. People don't have portable health records there, so they travel from villages on foot.
So you really care for people?
Yes, and my technology is basically a portable health record and for people who are caregiving for family members, but it works in public health scenarios as well. So Africa, mostly Rwanda.
So when did you get involved in journalism and reporting?
I wrote a lot about caregiving because I felt like, people who are caring for family members, because my background is really in healthcare. So I'm a respiratory therapist. That's what I went to college for, and realized that, people who are caring for family members are really overwhelmed, and it's really frustrating and challenging. As far as investigating, I spent time as a medical investigator for the Attorney General in Minnesota.
What year did you move to Washington?
It was January of 2020.
Explain that. How was it like being a newcomer?
And we didn't really know anybody. Jan Anderson was the first person that I met. Found out from contacting and finding his birth father that his fifth great-grandfather was Reverend Saunders Walker, who basically owned all the land that the city's on.
How long were you here in Washington before you realized that Washington had a problem?
I mean, we read the newspaper. At that time, Sparky still had the newspaper.
A lot of people in the community see the Washington-Wilkes Informer and they think that replaced the Washington News Reporter, but I tell them that no, there's two separate entities.
Yeah, I had met with him because I wrote a letter to the editor one time, and I had to pay for it because I think, it was too long or something. I think it was the first city council meeting I went to that it was just eye-opening. Coming here and not knowing anybody, not knowing anything about Washington. I mean, obviously, I could see driving through the town that there's a part of town where things seem different, and that's predominantly where the African Americans in the community live. I mean, I noticed that, but I didn't make assumptions about why. But then I knew that, a lot of the things, there's bias, and sometimes history in the South in schools is taught a little bit differently than the North. And so I tried to have a really open mind.
I know you've gained a lot of support here, and you've also, I'm sure, made a lot of enemies.
I started writing a newsletter summary of the city council meetings. So when I started going to the meetings and when I was reading what was in the paper, I thought, was this the same meeting I went to? So I felt like there were some things missing.
And a lot of people don't know that when they see the recording of the city council meeting, that's because of you. Am I correct?
Yeah. Yes. I pay Richard Crabb to record the meetings, and then we put them on the Informer.
Say that again? You do what?
I pay Richard Crabb.
Okay, you pay.
I pay Richard Crabb, yes.
But I'm sure most of your Informer stuff is probably just out of the kindness of your heart, probably.
Oh yeah, I don't get, nobody's paying me to, and I saw certainly very quickly the division at the council meeting. But what I saw was a great level of disrespect across the board. But then what I noticed was some people saying that they believed one or two councilmen were the whole entire problem on the council. That wasn't what I saw. And that they excused other things that I saw other council members do that I thought were disrespectful, like shutting down some council members when they were trying to talk. I've never seen local government before like here, honestly. Well, when I first moved here, I looked for, and I just Googled, nonprofits in Washington, Georgia. So WCCP, Wilkes County Community Partnerships came up, and Amethyst Wynn was the director. So I reached out to Amethyst. There's no prenatal care in Washington. And a lot of the women were like 6 months pregnant, had never had a prenatal visit at all. Nobody has ever sent me anything with evidence saying, oh, you got this wrong. When there was an ethics complaint filed against Councilman Colors, I contacted him to ask him his side of what happened. And some people got upset that I did that. But it really, really, everything ramped up when I wrote an article about the mayor, Bruce Bailey, some lawsuits that he was a subject of in the past. That changed everything. The day I published that article, people were showing up at my door.
So what you're saying, you've experienced a lot of, I guess, what you would call retaliation?
Retaliation is a really good way to put it. Anytime you're running for public office, I would think about every single thing in my past and know it's probably going to be dug up. And I did not know Bruce at all before that. I had heard of him. I'd heard positive things about him. In fact, I knew of him more than I knew about Ken Paris. I met Ken Paris, I think 1 or 2 days before qualifying had to be in.
You do have white supporters?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Because I know you have black supporters because you're practically one of us now.
Well, I've had several threats. Are you talking about Councilman Gunter? Yeah. That was what made it a bigger deal. Maybe some people have said, oh, it wasn't a big deal. That's what you do in the South. Or I've never had someone just show up at my house.
You're going to take any threat serious?
Very seriously.
Well, what would you say to the people that may say that you're wasting the city's time and money with this ethics complaint?
Well, because I emailed him. When I watched the video of the council meeting and heard what he said, I emailed him and thanked him for making that apology and told him I accepted his apology. I wanted him to know because I think that's admirable. That's the first time I've ever seen a council member apologize.
That doesn't make your complaint go away.
Well, in this situation, the mayor pro tem was Andy Anderson, who was also a subject of my complaint. It would be interesting to hear the mayor's explanation as to why he wouldn't have named the 3 council members who were not named in my complaint to investigate the complaint. Well, I know that the city council voted for his resignation in the June council meeting. Today I wrote an article that former administrator Jerry DeBin believes that he was fired solely because he's white, and he's asking for a little over $500,000 and
terminated. Are you entitled to severance pay or?
The municipal code, the city's code says that the city administrator, if he's terminated, the state of Georgia is a no fault, right to terminate state. Like, I'll be at the grocery store and somebody will give me a hug and whisper in my ear, keep doing what you're doing. I can't outwardly say that I support you and agree with everything you're saying, but I do.
Do you think racism still exists?
Absolutely. A situation recently that happened that involved my mom. My mom and my mother-in-law rented a house, so somebody else in town was managing the property. Maybe 6 months ago, she had texted me and told me how much she disapproved of what I was writing in the Informer and that I was ruining the town. I thought, oh no, is this going to create problems, for my mom in her living situation? And it did. My mom, who's disabled and blind, and so I had to move her immediately.
Before I get out of here, is it anything that you would like to say to the people of the city of Washington, Georgia?
I think that I would like people to know